the US-Iran peace talks. So there's been some peace talks happening between the United States and between Iran. So we've had some peace talks. I believe they started on Sunday, maybe even Monday, in I think it was Switzerland. So Switzerland, there were peace talks happening between the United States and Iran, facilitated by the Pakistanis and Qatar. So what actually transpired there? Because there were a lot of mixed reports going in. Apparently, after the talks had finished, they were saying that nothing transpired. Nothing transpired from the peace talks, and it was a complete waste of time, or at least day one was a waste of time. We were going into these peace talks having a deal. We had a memorandum of understanding, which we discussed last week on the show. And, you know, that was meant to be a sort of a reset for the two countries, you know, a new beginning, that they can actually come to an agreement. But the reports were saying otherwise. The reports were saying that there was no agreement, that they had, there was some report even saying that the Iranian delegation, you know, didn't even shake JD Vance's hand. They didn't even shake JD Vance's hand. And that the Iranians said that they read, it might have even been a Truth Social, think about this is the president we're dealing with, where he threatened the Iranians again. He threatened that he was going to bomb the Iranians again. And apparently that upset the Iranians so much that they wouldn't even you know, negotiate that day or be within the peace talks that day as sort of a mode of leverage or whatever it is. And apparently all those reports seemed to be incorrect, because JD Vance had a press conference later that day where he said that there was actually some success in the peace talks and that the Iranians had agreed to IAEA inspections, right? The International Atomic Energy Agency, they had agreed to inspections by them, right? Now, they thought they tricked us, right? Vance thought he tricked us. You know, the funniest thing about this is that a lot of people are saying, oh my goodness, this is such a success, this is great, you know, it's moving forward. I think Trump Jr. said that, Trump's son. He was like, oh, this is great, screw the haters, screw all the people, the panickers, and, you know, the ones that are saying that these peace talks went horrible. I'm sorry to say, my friend, the IAEA inspections were literally in the JCPOA. The JCPOA, Obama's nuclear deal, had IAEA inspections, right? In fact, Iran had agreed and had signed to be a member of the IAEA in 1958, right? 1958, think about this. 1958, during the Shah's run, Iran had agreed to nuclear inspections, right? And in 1970, they agreed to be a part of the Non-Proliferation Treaty, the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. They ratified that. So, I mean, what is this? It's like, oh, we tore something up, which Trump did in 2018. We tore this up, and now we've got it back again. Like, I'm sorry to say, what are these arguments here? So they're celebrating a success that they already had, the previous administration, Obama's administration, already had. So they're saying we have IAEA inspections when the Iranians had already agreed to that. I mean, the reality here, right? It's a slight tangent, but the reality here is that Iran never had a nuclear weapon. Iran has never had a nuclear weapon. And, you know, some people would push back and say, yeah, duh, we know that, but they're close to a nuclear weapon, right? They're close to developing a nuclear weapon. And even then, I mean, there's so much to argue against that. The DNI, Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, to the Trump administration last March said during the annual threat assessment in Congress that Iran had not reconstituted their nuclear weapons program since at least the early 2000s. She works for Trump. She doesn't work for Trump any longer. She's been, well, I don't know if she's been fired, but she's resigned from her position. But she said last March, clearly, like I said, in Congress, that Iran had not reconstituted their nuclear weapons program. The Ayatollah, not the now Ayatollah, the then Ayatollah, who Israel killed a few months back, he said, he issued a fatwa, an Islamic ruling, essentially saying that nuclear weapons are not halal, are not permissible in Islam. So therefore, they will not sort of develop them. He issued that in 2003 and later confirmed it. The delegates confirmed it in 2005, right? In Austria, Vienna, during an IAEA meeting, right? So the reality here is that we're celebrating something that we already had. The United States is celebrating something they already had, right? They had IAEA inspections under Obama's Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, under his nuclear deal, right? And the right wing will say, oh, well, it had sunset clauses and, oh, this and this, such and such. The sunset clauses expired in 2030, right? So essentially, Iran could enrich uranium up to the civilian use threshold of 3.67% after 2030. We're not even in 2030. So why are we talking about this? Trump tore it up in 2018, almost a decade ago. So whatever side you try to argue this from, I mean, you're getting smashed every single time. I'm sorry to say, it is really bad that we've had a deal last week, which is essentially it's essentially like a written concession, just concession after concession after concession. We're going to give you this. We're going to give you $300 billion in reparations. We're going to give you $12 billion in frozen assets. We're going to give you such and such. We're going to end your blockade. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. We're going to give you this. We're going to give you that. It's just win after win after win for the Iranians, right? The Iranians never had a nuclear weapon. They were enriching uranium above the civilian use threshold, but the only reason they were doing that is because they weren't bound to the JCPOA anymore. So why wouldn't they do that? It's like you have a job and your contract ends, and then your previous, I don't know, the previous management is saying, why are you not why not bound by this contract anymore? Why are you not following this contract anymore? Because I'm not bound by it. So they started enriching above the civilian use threshold. Some were saying to, I don't know, 60, 70%, which is quite high. But they can do what they want. They're not bound to an agreement no more because Trump tore it up at the behest of the Israelis, at the behest of the Israeli lobby, at the behest of Benjamin Netanyahu and his cabinet ministers and Sheldon Adelson and now Miriam Adelson. I mean, it's really, really bad for the Trump administration. I know they're trying to disguise this as a massive W. It is a massive L. It's a big, big loss for the Trump administration. But nevertheless, at least they've got IAEA inspections. And the reality is, by the end of this, they probably will have a deal similar to the JCPOA. The war is essentially over now. I'd be struck if it started again. No pun intended. I'd be struck if it started again. I'd be surprised. But who knows, right? I mean, I think the only scenario where it could start again is if Lebanon is continued to be bombed and bombarded by the Israelis. So we'll see what happens there, right? But the reality is that it's not looking good. But we will probably get a deal. The deal will probably be similar to the JCPOA. It will be probably worse in the sense that the Iranians have been given a lot of advantages this time around. Why would they need a nuclear weapon when they have the Strait of Hormuz? They can literally stop a third of global oil supplies, not even oil supplies, but fertilizer, natural gas, oil, everything, right? A third of all energy supplies they could halt at an instant. They can do that now. That is more powerful than a nuclear weapon, I would argue. So, and they didn't have that beforehand, right? I mean, they did, but they didn't utilize it. Now they're utilizing it. And now they're charging a toll. So, I mean, this is really, really bad for the Americans. But yeah, those were the peace talks that happened. JD Vance was there, the Qataris was there, the Pakistanis was there. It was a big moment. Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff were there. But yeah, they're trying to spin it as a W. Big, big loss for the Americans there. But what's new? They've been taking loss after loss since February, since the war started, and even before that, some people would argue.